December 7th, 1941. A force of more than 300 Japanese naval fighters. It was a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, without any preparation in just 2 hours. 20 U.S. warships have been reduced to scrap, 300 planes destroyed, more than 2,400 soldiers and civilians were killed. The sleeping giant had to wake up. 4 years later, the United States plays Santa Claus to bring gifts to Japan. It's a special gift. It's for the wise kids. 2 buds in a row as big as thighs, carefully packed and dropped down. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The fatal blow that shook the country of Japan. A blow that didn't just make the samurai shiver. It's also a message to the whole world. Don't be foolish to touch America. After all that's happened, people think that there is no one, and there's no power, enough guts to invade America again. But in terrorist training camps in Afghanistan, to take revenge on the world's #1 power, because of this country's presence in the Middle East, has never been extinguished. With a dense network in over 40 countries, using the motto of violent revolution and aggression, sending fear to the whole world. These guys in the bandages were in the United States. With everything that's been prepared before, they've turned the Boeings themselves, the pride of American commercial aviation, into rockets to destroy these iconic structures. America is on the darkest day in history.
It's down. It's down.
Yes, and what we're talking about here is 9/11s.
Okay, we'll get him out.
A normal day like any other. Clear blue sky, and the people of New York City, breathing in the safest air on the planet. It's on this side, a man named Mohammed Atta. Call for BINASIP and say that our plan is ready. 4 targets, 4 flights in sight. 11, 175, 77, and 93. (7 a.m. Logan Boston International Airport, USA. The leader's name is Mohammed Atta, and his partner is Adiran Lasset Al-Amari. Just landed after boarding flight 5930 from Maine. Here, they met 3 other terrorists, Wael al-Shari, Walid al-Shari, and al-Swakami. All 5 of them passed the security check and get on the plane as a passenger, increasing the total number of passengers to 81. That's American Airlines Flight 11. There are daily schedules from Boston to Los Angeles International Airport in California. Flight was operated on a Boeing 767-200, controlled by 11 crew members. The captain was 50-year-old John Oganowski. The co-pilot was Thomas McGinnis, 42. Former Navy fighter pilot. 7:59 from runway 4R. The wide-body jet start taking off on the runway. At 08, 13:29 seconds. While flying through the center, Massachusetts at 26,000 feet, the pilots received instructions from an air traffic controller in Boston.
American 11, turn right 020. Boston confirmed, turn right 020.
More than 10 seconds later, air traffic continues to call Flight 11. Requires pilots to fly to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet.
American 11, climb and maintain flight level 350. Requires pilots to fly to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. American, are you still there?
There's not a single response. After all, something happened. 8:13 from business class 8D. Mohammed Atta has signaled to his juniors. They used weapons against 3 people. 2 flight attendants were injured. And incision. A male passenger named Danio Leowill. The flight attendants opened the door and stormed into the cockpit. The surprise attack. Atta and Al-Omari could overwhelm both the captain and the co-pilot to take control of the plane. Outside the cabin, 3 other men forced all the passengers to the back of the plane, threatened them with a bomb. 8:16, 2 minutes after the robbery. The plane stalled at 29,000 feet, and very quickly then deviated from the planned journey. The sound, like a scream, start, echoed in the control center's phone in Boston. They had a bad feeling about Flight 11. By 8:21, the plane's Mode C transponder had been turned off. 8:23 consecutive calls made. The lines of messages: "Good morning, ATC's looking for you 135.32. Please contact Boston Center as soon as possible. They've lost radio contact and your transponder signal." Outside the cabin, Army Sweeney and Betty Ong flight attendants. I tried to contact American Airlines.
I'm Betty Ong, flight attendant on Flight 11. I think we're under attack. Could be hijackers, first-class passengers. 2 other flight attendants were injured. We can't get into the cockpit. The door is closed.
8:24:38, Leader Atta's name. Made a call to the cabin. But he was confused, and this signal was accidentally sent to the air traffic station in Boston.
No one is allowed to move. We're heading back to the airport. As long as you keep quiet, everything will be fine.
8:26 min. The plane is moving at high speed and heading south. 8:33 min. The hijacker continues to announce, second time to the passengers,
We're going back to the airport. Don't try to do any stupid things.
8:37. Air traffic is calling flight 2175. The flight was on the same route as Flight 11, headed to California. It carried 56 passengers and 9 crew members. 175 has now taken off for 23 minutes and is maintaining stability at 33,000 feet.
175. Can you see American Airlines Flight 11? We can see flight number 11. They're at 29,000 meters. Thanks, 175, turn right 30 degrees to avoid collision.
A while later, about 8:43, the pilots of Flight 175 called the air traffic back and reported that they heard the sound of the wall. It's from Flight 11. But the call just ended. The other hijackers were already on 175. I suddenly burst into the cockpit and killed both the captain and the co-pilot. The leader is Al-Shahi, a well-trained pilot. Take control of the flight. Up until now, 2 flights were hijacked by terrorists. Back to Flight 11. Right now, Atta has completed the final leg towards Manhattan. Fly south, in the direction of the World Trade Center. At 8:46, Army Sweeney flight attendant. It's terrifying when they found out their planes were flying too low with speeds up to 710 kilometers per hour. And just a few seconds later, the giant Boeing crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center Twin Towers between the 93rd and 99th floors. Hundreds of people died instantly. That includes everyone on the plane and many others along the way. Fuel tank contains up to 38,000 of gasoline. Explode immediately. It set the building on fire. Nearly 1,000 survivors trapped in the building. Hundreds of people from the 91st and 92nd floors decided to jump to the ground. I can't stand the heat and smoke. The news quickly spread across national television channels. Some reporters believe that the plane crashed into the North Tower. It's a small twin-engine jet. That they didn't notice the terrible hole it left. This false information has been sent to President George W. Bush when he was visiting an elementary school in Florida. The president's office conjectured that the accident was definitely the pilot's fault. No one doubts the real behavior on Flight 11. Evacuations took place in both towers, but they still think it was just an accident. Without ever knowing, the next disaster is coming. Right after taking control of Flight 175, the hijackers let the plane go, deviate from the specified flight path. This signal can be observed by the Air Traffic Center in New York. They tried to contact the crew, but they didn't get an answer. Inside the cabin, the passengers and flight attendants, I made calls to relatives and their families. At 8:52, a male flight attendant, Fengman, called the United Airlines maintenance office in San Francisco to report the hijacking. After 1 minute and 15 seconds, Fengman's call has been disconnected. Onboard contact and reporting system. I received a text message.
I heard about an incident reported on your plane. Please verify everything is normal.
Know that your actions have been revealed. The madness of terrorists getting to the top. The plane almost had a mid-air collision with Delta Airlines Flight 2315. At the ground station, an air traffic controller, Debuteclia, tried to steer the plane around, but it didn't work. Instead, 175 continued to accelerate and move towards 2315. In the last moments, 2315, there's been a deviation from orbit and narrowly escaped the accident. 8:52, the male passenger is Peter Hansall. I called my father. Hansall is traveling with their wife and 2-year-old daughter, the youngest passenger on the flight.
It's bad, Dad. A flight attendant was stabbed. They've got knives and bombs. Everybody's scared. The plane is flying. I think we're going down. They're going to hit some building. Dad, don't worry. If that happens, it'll be quick.
At 8:58, Flight 175 was over New Jersey. At 28,500 feet towards New York City. Within 5 minutes, the plane is constantly speeding up. On the contrary, the altitude drops rapidly. At exactly 9:03 at 800 kilometers per hour, Boeing 767 straight into the South Tower of the World Trade Center between the 77th and 85th floors. A fire rises. Columns of black smoke. It makes the sky even darker. 2 planes, in turn, crashed into the twin towers of the complex, the World Trade Center. The collapse of all 7 towers in the area. whole of America woke up. President George Bush announced on national television from the Pentagon.
We're going through a national tragedy. 2 passenger planes were hijacked, deliberately crashed into the World Trade Center. It was clearly a terrorist attack on the United States.
After 2 hijackers on, American Airlines has ordered a nationwide shutdown. Calls from Ediana Police Air Traffic Center and the operators of this company to their Flight 77. The flight just took off at 8:20. Carried 68 passengers and 6 crew members from Dulles International Airport in Northern Virginia. I couldn't get to Los Angeles International Airport. The reason is because right now, it's also under the control of the hijackers. That's 5 Saudi men, led by Henger, who has been granted the FA's commercial pilot certificate in April 1999. They've been attacking the cockpit since 8:51, and it only took 3 minutes to get hold of the flight control book. The hijackers diverted the plane off course in the vicinity of Highland County, Ohio. They've turned off the transponder and activate the autopilot mode. Right after that, they turned the plane east to Washington. The goal has been changed, this time to the Pentagon, United States Department of Defense headquarters, between 9:17 and 9:22. Henger has made an announcement via the cabin's public radio system. Inform those on board that the plane is being hijacked and asked passengers not to resist. They'll all land safely when the ransom is demanded. 9:29 a.m. He turned off the autopilot and started manual control. The plane was traveling at 850 kilometers per hour and very quickly lowered the altitude. 9:37 when only about 0.8 kilometers from the target. Boeing 757 made a 330-degree spiral in the direction of the clock. The altitude was lowered to 670 meters. The hijackers sped up and crashed straight into the west flank of the Pentagon. All 64 people on board were killed instantly. 125 people working in the Defense Ministry building were killed. After the attack on the Pentagon, the entire United States became a no-fly zone. However, in the meantime, in the sky, there was a disobedient plane. That's the Boeing 757-200 on United Airlines Flight 93. The 4th flight was part of the terrorists' plan, due to congestion at the airport. 8:42, this flight has just been cleared to take off from Newark International Airport in New Jersey. The destination is San Francisco International Airport in California. People wished that, if only the flight had been delayed any longer, just a few more minutes, then maybe the next story won't be that cruel. The plane was carrying 37 passengers. There were 4 hijackers, commanded by Jarrah. The flight controller was 4 crew members. The captain is Jason Dahl. The former deputy is Leroy Homer Jr. 9. 3-time 175 crash. The plane climbed to a cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. The crew received a warning from the radio, not saved.
Be careful with any attempts to enter the cockpit. 2 planes have crashed into the World Trade Center.
The captain still doesn't know the presence of terrorists. Until 9:28 minutes, they crashed into the cockpit and overpowered the pilots. A brawl took place. Air traffic controllers on the ground are communicating with the flight. Then I heard a scream in the co-pilot's cockpit.
Mayday, mayday, get out of here.
Received an emergency distress signal from the flight. The coordinator in charge of monitoring the flights on the west coast of the United States. Inform Hayden Command Center immediately. Federal Aviation Administration in Virginia. Homer was pushed into the passenger compartment. In the cabin, The other two hijackers were cornered. Concentrate the passengers in the last compartment to minimize the interference of passengers. 9:31. Jera turns on the speaker to inform them of a fake content.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. Please stay where you are. We've got a bomb on the plane.
Once again, the leader pressed the switch, and what he said was transmitted to the ground station. Two minutes after Flight 77 collided with the Pentagon, he then announced that the plane would return to the airport. Done. Finally, their sinister plan has been uncovered. Information about the attacks on the mall. It's been transmitted to flight attendants and passengers. They realized they were going to die, and a lot of other people on the ground. He is also preparing to face the death penalty. A total of 37 calls were made from the plane. There was a secret vote. The group consists of flight attendants and passengers. They need to regain control of the plane. Let's not let the hijackers achieve their goal. 9:52. A slogan is shouted.
Are you guys ready? Okay, let's fire up.
They used a stroller, started attacking the hijackers. The chaos of war broke out. I realized that the situation is getting worse. Jera began to fly the plane violently in response. Planes are constantly wobbling in the sky, trying to move to Washington, D.C. Make the plane to fall out of control. It's going at 90 miles per hour. 10:01. Got word that two of his teammates had been killed. Jera murmured, reciting the sutras. He decided he'd let the plane crash land. 10:02. Looks like the strike team got inside the cockpit. 10:02. The hijacker continues to howl sounds in Arabic.
Hey, give it to me. Give it to me.
He finally pushed the steering wheel, causing the plane to crash into an abandoned field, the town of Stone the Creek. LSE 1003 FAT. All 44 people on board were killed. The 9/11's attacks in the United States. That's 2,996 people. More than 6,000 people were injured. It wasn't until later that people knew that the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol, was targeted by the hijackers of Flight 93. If, without the brave sacrifice of the passengers, maybe damage and casualties that day, it's much bigger than that. Conspiracy theories about 9/11's. Newspapers all over the world have spent too much ink about the terrible tragedy that took place over 20 years ago. But so far, people keep asking the question that, is this a legitimate excuse? Did the United States start the Iraq War 2 years later? These theories suggest that the attack was deliberately allowed to happen, or a campaign to deceive the public, conducted by the U.S. government, according to a survey conducted in 2006. More than a third of the American public believes that federal officials aided the terrorists in the 9/11's attacks, or there was no action to stop them. With intent, help the United States. There is a reason to go to war in the Middle East, and here's some of the evidence that came out. First, the North American Aerospace Defense Command didn't offer any help in time, despite the calls for help, and the hijacked plane has been confirmed. And notify the air traffic stations. Number 2, the holes in the walls of the Pentagon are too small. If it's made by a Boeing 757. And number 3, through an investigation that showed United Airlines put option 2, and American Airlines, allowed to profit on the decline in the share price of these two companies, was ordered in large quantities before 9/11's. That led to speculation that The people in the I could have known about 9/11s and have participated in the corresponding bet and follow you. What is your opinion on this issue?